Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the spirit, the personality of guided Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srimatan Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Vidyantasto Hibadrani Virunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly and enchanted. Nashta Paishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 1, entitled The First Step in God Realization. So we're in verse 33. Nadyo Sya Nadyo Ta Tanu Ruhani Nadyo Sya Nadyo Ta Tanu Ruhani Mahi Ruha Vishva Tanur Nripendra Mahi Ruha Vishva Tanur Nripendra Ananta Virya Shwasitam Matarishva Ananta Virya Shwasitam Matarishva Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Prabha Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Prabha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanu Ruhani Mahi Ruha Vishva Tanur Nripendra Ananta Virya Shwasitam Matarishva Katir Vaya Karma Guna Prabha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanu Ruhani Mahi Ruha Vishva Tanur Nripendra Ananta Virya Shwasitam Matarishva Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Prabha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanu Ruhani Mahiruha Vishvatanuripendra Anantavirya Shwasitam Matarishva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha. Please chant.
Nadyo Swadnigrita Junurihani Mahiruha Vishvatanuripendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarishva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyosha Nadyota Tanuruhani Mahiruha Vishvatanuripendra Anantavirya Swashitam Matarishva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravahan
Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravahan Nadyosha Nadyota Tanuruhani Mahiruha Vishvatanuripendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarishva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha.
Right else, ladies.
Nadyosha Nadyota Tanuruhani
Nadyosha Nadyota
Mahiruha Vishvatanuripendra Anantavirya Swasitam
Anantavirya Vishvatam
Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha.
Last word in that third line is, I didn't put an H there, it's Matarishva. I didn't put an H there.
No.
Okay, good.
M-A-T-A-R.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, word meanings. Nadyaha. The rivers. Asya.
Of him.
Nadyaha. Veins. Ata. And thereafter. Tanurihani. Hairs on the body. Mahiruha. The plants and trees. Vishvatanaho. Of the universal form. Ripa Indra. O king. Anantaviryaha. Of the omnipotent. Swasitam. Breathing. Matarishva. Air. Gatahi. Movement. Vayaha. Passing ages. Karma. Activity. Guna pravaha. Reactions of the modes of nature. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
So read the whole thing first. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body. And the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements. And his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. So please repeat. O king. The rivers are the veins. Of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body. And the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements.
The passing ages are his movements.
And his activities are the reactions.
And his activities are the reactions.
Of the three modes of material nature.
Of the three modes of material nature.
Report. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There's nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:12, the modes of nature act upon his direction only. Act under his direction only. And as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord. And thus the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 548, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 12:5, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances in him. So I think now what I want to do first, before going to these Bhagavad Gita verses and expanding, I want to look at the Sanskrit words. There's something interesting here, that this universal form is built right into the Sanskrit language. Because look in the first line, there's Nadyo and Nadyo. And Nadyaha means the rivers, and Nadyaha means the veins. So right there, it's right in the language, that rivers and veins, they're almost the same word, just a little different accent. And another one, the end of the first line, Ruhani, and the beginning of the second line, Mahiruha. So you have the Ruha twice. And that's the plants and the hairs of the body and the plants and trees. Another way, the Sanskrit language. I'm sure there are other words, like in any language there are different words for the same thing. And that's how come you can make poetry. You can choose the best word that gives a rhyme or gives a depth of meaning or something that you want. But Sanskrit has this potential that there are the same word for trees and plants and for hairs, and the same word for rivers and for veins. That was taken full advantage of here, it's put right in the same verse. So I found that was pretty interesting. So even if you don't know a language, you can examine some of the poetry in it, some of the, maybe some rhymes or patterns or word uses that enriches your appreciation. So I'll read the verse again. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. So we're discussing the universal form, and we're discussing that it is the form of, essentially, the supersoul, the form of the Lord, because he inhabits the universe in every level, and in every accompanying every soul, and within every atom. He's the maintainer, he's the friend and helper, the witness, what does it say? The witness and the permitter. And he's everywhere. So if this is the first step in God realization, and not, as I used to think, that the universal form was the first level Brahman. It's actually Paramatma. It's actually working on Paramatma realization. And I had that wrong. Anyway, I won't talk about that. But let's go to We'll get there. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it's stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Lord are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. So, 12.5 goes, Klesho dikataras tesham avyaktasaktasam avyakta higatir dukam deva vadvir avapyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. This is being contrasted against understanding the personal form, of which the first idea of the personal form is the universal form. So this universal form is not impersonalism. If we look at nature and we analyze and figure out that God is not a person, that nature is God or something, I mean, how can you have, unless God is a separate person inhabiting nature, you have to come up with that God is just nature or something. I don't know, because I found out, I thought I knew what Brahman realization was, and I realized I don't even know. So, let me read this purport here. The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of the inconceivable, unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord are called Jnana Yogis, and persons who are in full Krishna consciousness, engaged in devotional service to the Lord, are called Bhakti Yogis. Now here the difference between Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is definitely expressed. The process of Jnana Yoga, although ultimately bringing one to the same goal, is very troublesome, whereas the path of Bhakti Yoga, the process of being in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. Who's the one that describes the difficulty? Okay, here's the third paragraph. So for a devotee, there's no difficulty, after it gives the explanation like the authorized mailbox and so on. For a devotee, there is no difficulty in approaching the Supreme immediately and directly. It's like we have the deity, it's the mailbox like that. But for those who are following the impersonal way of spiritual realization, the path is difficult. And here's why it's difficult. He says they have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through such Vedic literatures as the Upanishads. And they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and realize all these processes. This is not very easy for a common man. A person in Krishna consciousness, engaged in devotional service, simply by the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, simply by offering regulative obeisances unto the deity, simply by hearing the glories of the Lord, and simply by eating the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. There's no doubt that the impersonalists are unnecessarily taking a troublesome path with the risk of not realizing absolute truth at the ultimate end. But the personalist, without any risk, trouble, or difficulty, approaches the Supreme Personality directly. A similar passage appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated there that if one ultimately has to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this surrendering process is called bhakti, but instead takes the trouble to understand what is Brahman and what is not Brahman, and spends his whole life in that way, the result is simply troublesome. Therefore, it's advised here that one should not take up this troublesome path of self-realization, because there's uncertainty in the ultimate result. And this is very interesting to look at this. So many times the Bhagavatam class requires that you look at something you assume that you understood. So, like I said, I assumed that I understood Brahman realization. It's supposed to be the first level, and I thought, well, it must be the easiest. Of course, to get liberation that way is hard. I thought, okay, yeah, but to understand. But really, what it means is you may have an opinion that God is not a person, but all you end up as, without following this very troublesome path, whatever actually it is, you end up, you just a materialist with an opinion. That's all. And there's a lot of materialists going around with an opinion, and they're practically atheists. God exists with his nature, or something like that. And they are, we're all God, or some, their spirit, whatever that is. And they go around with an opinion. And they're still materialists. So to actually make advancement on this path is very troublesome. However, if one makes honest advancement on this path, one ends up at Super Soul and finally at Krishna anyway. So if one follows it honestly, because one has to come to the conclusion that God is separate from nature, so on, if we're following the Jnani path. So anyways, I came to realize that I don't know what Brahman is. I know there's 4 definitions, I'll read them. But when I assumed that I went along for years not noticing that the universal form turns up everywhere as first, and I'll talk about that too. But I was thinking that the universal form was Brahman realization. So, anyways, Brahman definition in the Bhagavad Gita glossary. 1, the individual soul. 2, the impersonal, all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme. 3, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 4, the Mahatattva, or total material substance. You know what? I don't know where or what this all-pervasive and personal aspect of Krishna is, because what I thought it was is the super soul in the universal form. So that's interesting, but I'm not going to pursue that line anyway, because I understand that it's very troublesome, and here I am, I've got a personal path. But the personal path is always described, always starting with the universal form. And so let's see, is there anything else I remember? Let's see, so we did that one. There's another verse here. Well, I go back to it all the time. It also mentions Bhagavad Gita 7:12. Ye chaiva sattvika bhava rajasas tamasas chaye matat evekti tanvidi natwaham te shute mai. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So, we understand that there are 3 parts of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and they say that the first part is the Karma Yoga section. The middle part is supposed to be the juiciest part, like a sandwich. That's the Bhakti Yoga section. And the last part is the Jnana Yoga section. That's the idea. The first part is Karma Yoga, although it covers all the yogas. But in a sense, all the yogas are different kinds of effort or activity or karma. So in a broad sense, it's just about the different activities and different paths that one can take. So it's Karma Yoga, what to do about the Supreme. Okay, we're eternal spirit souls, we're not divided. What do we do about it? There are these paths. And then it goes, within the first 6 chapters, it ends up in the last verse. The highest one is devotional service, the last verse of the 6th chapter. So then we have the middle 6 chapters, where I'll get to that last. And then the last 6 chapters are more like going deeper into the science. And then finally the conclusion. So they go back deeper into the science, so it's the Jnana Yoga section. That's what I can understand about why it's called that. So the middle six chapters are the Bhakti Yoga section. And interestingly enough, Krishna starts out with the universal form. And you know what? I looked through and I saw that all 6 of those chapters have the same things. One way or another, they start out with the universal form. Only thing in chapter 12, it starts with impersonalism versus personalism. But in a sense, they all start at that. Okay, maybe you can argue that chapter 12 is a little different pattern. But they all, somehow or other, they start with the universal form, and they show that Krishna is everything, Krishna is within everything, and then there are different paths and different struggles of the living entities, and there's devotional service, and ultimately there's the person Krishna, devotional service to him. And it's like all those chapters, at least 7 through 11, and in a sense 12, are doing the same thing, starting at the same point. So if you look there, you will see there's a universal form somehow in everyone. Krishna says, I am the taste of water, etc. Then he said, what in chapter 8? I should give an example. Attaining the supreme. So I just was reading all this yesterday. try an example. We could say one should, here's one, text 9 in chapter 8. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything. Is he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, that means super soul, who is the maintainer of everything, super soul again, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. So in a sense, it's kind of, talks about Adi Atma, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Atma is the eternal spirit soul, Adi Bhautika is this world and the bodies and everything, and Adi Atma, or Adi Daivika is the demigods, and then Krishna is Adi Yagya, above everything. So this is right in the beginning of chapter 8. So this is kind of like further understanding of the universal soul, of the universal form. So in chapter 9 has ones in there, the most confidential knowledge, but it starts with things like the whole cosmic order is under me, under my will. It is automatically manifested again and again. Under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Let's one before that. Understand it is a mighty wind blowing everywhere, rest always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So it's like, it starts, even chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, starts with the universal form, not to mention chapter 10, all the opulences as exhibited in nature are Krishna. And then chapter 11, in chapter 11, Arjuna says, I wish to see this form of yours as you pervade. Chapter 11 starts with the universal form as we see with these eyes. It was very interesting, and then it goes to a different level. Universal form. Krishna says, Arjuna says, although I see you here before me in your actual position as you've described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. If you think I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self. So it starts out, as we're studying it in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, what we can see of the universe. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, O son of Pritha, see now my opulence is hundreds of thousands of very divine and multicolored forms. O best of the Bharatas, we're thinking this is the Vishnu form, but it's not quite yet, because it says, O best of the Bharatas, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini, Kumaras, and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one's ever seen or heard of before. Things, behold the many wonderful things. So, demigods, things. O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving and non-moving is here completely in one place. So, he's showing Arjuna the universal form that we're studying right now, how the universe is the form of the Lord. Right? So this is like Mother Yashoda saw in Krishna's mouth and so on. But this is what's different about it. Next, Krishna says, but you cannot see me. The emphasis, I realize, is on me, but you cannot see me with your present eyes. It's not like he's talking about, behold all this, and Arjuna's going, what are you talking about? He is seeing, but he's not seeing Krishna in it yet. So now Krishna says, but you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. And then what happens next is that Sanjaya said, O king, having spoken thus, the Supreme Lord of all mystic power, the personality of Godhead, displayed his universal form to Arjuna. That's why this is a different universal form that never was seen before. So Arjuna saw in that universal form unlimited mouths, unlimited eyes, unlimited wonderful visions. The form was decorated with many celestial ornaments and many divine upraised weapons. He wore celestial garlands and garments, and many divine scents were smeared over his body. All was wondrous, brilliant, unlimited, all expanding. If hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once in the sky, their radiance might resemble the full effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. So you see what I'm saying? Of course, it progresses, and he sees not just the wondrousness, but he sees that this is death happening to everybody. And then he sees that, everybody's being eaten by this one. Who are you? And he's, time I am. And so on. It goes on like that. It develops. But this universal form is the super soul that we're to be meditating on as we study the universal forms in the Bhagavatam as the first step of God realization that, okay, all of nature exists, and within it is a person. And that's the super soul, Shirodaka Shai Vishnu, who's within everything, Paramatma, the maintainer, Vishnu, the maintainer, and the person, Krishna, but not manifesting everything about Krishna. He's not with the gopis right now wearing a peacock feather and playing a flute. He's being Vishnu, and he's maintaining the universe, and he's within it. It's like his external body, although he has his own personal spiritual form, he also has this external body, just like we have a personal spiritual form, which doesn't show now because it only shows it in the spiritual world, but it's covered by a material body of Krishna's energy. Krishna is covered by a material body of his own energy. We can't control this body very much. We can control some of the activities, but we don't know some of the activities, even how it's done, like digesting or something. And so he, however, controls everything about this universal form, this universal body, because it is his energy. In a way, he's not different from it. In a way, he's aloof from it, within it, but not within it. So all these mysterious things, and we are to meditate this way, but Arjuna actually saw it, how it's himself and everything. Arjuna saw the super soul, and it's like everything is stripped away, and there's a super soul instead of the covering. So that's very fascinating to me. And so therefore I'm seeing that this understanding of the universal form of the super soul is super important, because it turns up again and again and again. Even after these middle 6 chapters, it turns up again in chapter 15. Again, first it shows how the soul is bewildered and lost in it, in the banyan tree. And then it goes right directly to I am the light of the sun and the moon, I am the moonlight that causes the juice. I can't quote that. I was missing that. Let's see. Quote, 13 has a universal form in it. 15. It's another depiction of the universal form. 15:12, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire also come from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So on. So the universal form is again and again come back to. And why is it important? Because aren't we supposed to be about thinking of Krishna? But here we are, in the middle of this material world, struggling with the effects of the modes, trying to be transcendental, still dealing with remaining desires and karma and all these things. And we need to understand that all of it is Krishna. So we need to understand this universal form, because we can't every minute of our stage be thinking about Krishna and the gopis. So we are, whatever we're dealing with, if we can also understand it, it's so important. It's so important, this universal form. We can understand this is Krishna too. It'll make a big difference. So that's why it keeps being returned to again and again. So I will, it's 8:15 now. I can stop and we can have discussions, questions and comments. First, can I call? Yes, you go first.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, you're saying that we should see the universal form as the super soul, but are you talking about Paramatma when you
Yes.
say super soul?
Yeah.
Because I myself like to feel that Krishna is in my heart and just keep it simple. Krishna is in my heart, and to me, to think of Krishna as a person, not in any way just an imaginary universal form or something. It's much easier and much more personal and satisfying to think Krishna's in my heart, and that's it.
Krishna, it is Krishna. It's not different. It's just Krishna being a little formal, as all Super Soul is. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about Krishna. I'm not saying against that. But I used to also think when we read about the universal form, now I got to read about mountains and trees and things. No, I thought we supposed to. Now I want to read about Krishna, and I got to read about mountains and trees. But I'm understanding it in a different level now. That Super Soul is, we learn about there's 3 guna avatars. There's Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and Vishnu is the maintainer. Well, what does that mean? It's not just some kind of little role. He's the soul in the whole universe. And he has a purpose, not just to maintain the universe. The universe has a purpose. He has a purpose to bring us back to Krishna. Just like in the last chapter, when Krishna is describing the Super Soul. I'm going to read that too, 18. Pretty near the 2 verses here. This is 61. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Next verse says, O Saya Bharata, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. So then he says, thus I've explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. Because you're my very dear friend, I'm speaking to you this supreme instruction and the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Then you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. So that's the point I'm making, that Super Soul, maintaining the universe, being everywhere, has a purpose. Super Soul is most of Krishna, but not the intimate activities and so on, and not the intimate manifestation. The Super Soul is most of Krishna for the purpose of bringing us to Krishna. I'm sure he's happy if you're thinking of Krishna in your heart, because the devotee who meditates on a particular form of the Lord, he becomes that in your heart. So he does become Krishna in your heart. But how much time do we, if we aren't able to think of Krishna 24 hours a day, every minute, all the time, and sometimes we're just dealing with the struggles of the material energy, which probably most of us, that's true. And so therefore, if we can see that as the universal form, and see that the Super Soul is within that, maintaining it for the purpose of bringing us back. This could say this whole material world is a preaching center to bring us back to Krishna. Otherwise, we could be drifting in the dark. You didn't want me? Okay, go in the dark. Because I'm the source of everything, so go in the dark. No, it's all set up to be a preaching center for souls to come back to Krishna. And it doesn't matter how much time it takes, because it's got to be back up to free will. And so we get involved in karma, we develop more material desires and everything, and so it doesn't matter how much time it takes. It's to bring us back. The purpose of Super Soul is to bring us back to Krishna. So if you're thinking about Krishna, that's good. But to understand the universal form is broadening your understanding of how much Krishna is bringing us back to him. Does that help any? That's my realization lately that I'm excited about. It's just broadening my understanding. Okay. Did you have your hand up?
Right. The word pasya, or behold, it seems that's a sort of a key when Krishna uses that word, behold the armies on the field, or behold my opulence. I searched the word with the database, and it pops up so many times. And it seems that this universal form, what else? The cosmic form, my mystic opulence, he uses the word behold. And it's a real sort of obvious key, like check this out.
You see, we think about Krishna and then we think about problems. We think about Krishna and we think about problems. Problems are made of the material world. And if we see the super soul in those problems, it'll help a lot. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not directly responding to what you said, but...
Well, it makes sense too.
Anything else? Okay. 5 minutes early. 5 minutes extra time today to do what you want to do. All glories to, thank you very much, and all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.